Good evening. I'm Bob Sylvester, Director of Education and Programs at the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art, and I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this evening. There will be time for a Q&A after the discussion, so be sure to leave your questions in the comment section below. Tonight's presentation on the history of Project Rowhouses is presented in conjunction with the exhibition Floyd Newsum, Evolution of Sight, on display in the museum's main galleries through October 8th. Born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, Floyd Newsum's childhood gave him a front row seat to the civil rights movement. Raised by an activist father who was part of the city's first black firefighters, Floyd later went on to study at the Memphis Academy of Arts and subsequently obtained his MFA from the Tyler School of Art at Temple University in Philadelphia. His professional career began when he was offered a faculty position at the University of Houston downtown, where he has taught art for over 40 years while simultaneously pursuing a career as an artist. In 1993, Floyd and 6 other visionary African-American artists in the Houston area, James Madison, Burt Long Jr., Jesse Lott, Rick Lowe, Bert Samples, and George Smith, recognized potential in a block and a half of abandoned shotgun houses. Where others saw poverty, these artists saw a future sight for positive, creative, and transformative experiences in the Third Ward. Together, they began to explore how they could be a resource for the community and how art, freed from traditional studio practices, could be an engine for social transformation. For the past 30 years, the community they built has created sustainable opportunities for artists, families, small businesses, and Third Ward residents, helping to cultivate independent change agents by supporting people and their ideas so they have the tools and capacity to do the same for others. Danielle Burns Wilson is a curator and art director at Project Rowhouses in Third Ward, Houston, Texas. She received her BA in History and Political Science from Prairie View A&M University and her MA in Art History from the City University of New York, Brooklyn College. Her career path has taken her from the University Museum at Texas Southern University to New York, St. Louis, Tanzania, and back home to Houston. She has won several prestigious fellowships and awards and curated a dynamic mix of shows that highlight significant artists and critical movements central to the Black experience. And now, I'd like to pass the virtual mic to Danielle Burns Wilson. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you this evening?
Thank you. Well, thank you for asking. And hello, Andrew, behind the scenes too. Thank you so much for all of your help with this technology. And thank you to the entire Madison Museum of Contemporary Art. I'd also like to thank Lauren Cross, Mark Cervenka for putting together such a beautiful and thoughtful exhibition about our beloved Floyd Newsum. And I just really would like to get into the history of Project Rowhouses. This year, we're turning 30, and it has been historical and groundbreaking in its mission, and I will be forever grateful for our 7 visionary artists and those who built the organization, really behind sweat equity, passion, determination, and the power to believe in Black liberation. So let's get to it. First slide. So I want to begin talking about John Biggers and the Row House. This work is Dr. John Biggers' 1987 Shotgun, 4th Ward. It's a row of shotgun houses. It derives power and its timeless, universal appeal from the rhythmic reoccurrence of simple geometric forms and elements. The shotgun is many hybrids to African American culture and its landscape. The shotgun was introduced to the U.S. By free Haitians. And what it did in essence is reconnect African Americans with the socially intimate space that's found in West Africa architecture. And the architecture really reflects the lack of importance given to individuals and reflects the importance back onto the family and the people dwelling in the celebration of family life and community relationship. And it creates a sense of collective identity. Porches transform into community gathering spaces. And this is really the essence of Project Rowhouses. Next slide. So the work of Project Rowhouses began in 1993, but in the early 90s, 7 visionary artists met one another. James Madison, Burt Long Jr., Jesse Lott, Rick Lowe, Floyd Newsum, Burt Samples, and George Smith. And what they did is, as they were trying to get to know one another and spend time together, it was around the same time that Project Rowhouses emerged. Next slide. So co-founder Rick Lowe, who was in the white t-shirt there, while volunteering at SHAPE Community Center, and SHAPE is an acronym for Self-Help and African People Through Education. He was joined for a tour of Third Ward community with leaders and city officials, and was brought to the house, was this row of houses. And this was at the corner of Live Oak and Holman in Third Ward. And it was considered one of the most dangerous blocks in Houston. And where others saw poverty, these artists started to see a site for positive, creative, and transformative experience. It's referenced that Rick Lowe, who was studying with Dr. Biggers at Texas Southern University at the time, looked at the houses and really began to see these beautiful Black utopias that Dr. Biggers had depicted in his paintings, that you'd seen earlier in the slides. And just to mention, next to Rick Lowe in the overalls is our beloved founder too, Jesse Lott, and actually in the profile in the white shirt is Burt Samples. So some people were advocating for the houses to be torn down, but our founders, again, they saw the potential. And together they began to explore how art might be able to be an engine for social change. This was at a time when Black artists were not being fully accepted in museum spaces, and some could argue they're still not. And it was a place for them to really connect and create. So after purchasing a block and a half of houses, the founding artists, they started to gather volunteers, and also other arts organizations throughout the city started to also band together. The Menil Foundation, now known as the Menil Collection, Diverse Works, all came together alongside volunteers of all ages to restore the houses. Next slide. As the renovations continued, PRH was receiving more and more attention and support as an innovative, socially engaged art project. Around the same time, Rick Lowe came across the idea of social sculpture. It's a phrase coined by the German artist Joseph Beuys, who asked us to see all of society as an ever-evolving work of art, and to see ourselves as artists, contributing, creating, and caretaking for the great work of art that we call the society that we live in. And this is a quote from Joseph Beuys expressing social sculpture. Next slide. So a lot of people know Project Rowhouses for the arts, so we're going to talk about that for a moment. So in 1993, during the renovations, the founders began to focus on how they would infuse the visible artistic presence in the project and in the neighborhood. With the windows and boards still boarded up, founder Jesse Lott conceived the idea of a drive-by, and those are the first two slides at the top. He invited artists to create installations on the exterior of the houses. This art was staged, allowing people to drive by, quote unquote, and see the art, but it was also a social commentary at the time. Drive-by is really all people could do at that time because drive-by shootings were so common. This tradition of inviting artists to install work in and around the houses involved in what we now call and refer to as artist rounds. Next slide. Oh, let me point out, I'm sorry, if you could go back. Let me point out that Floyd Newsum was also in the first round. That was October 15th in 1994. The image at the very bottom, tribal markings, is his house. Next slide. So our signature rounds have played an integral role in maintaining the momentum of ongoing social justice art practices. Our rounds began as a way to experience art that was not typically shown in traditional galleries at the time. The round amplified the narrative of our culture and what had been historically kind of ignored, unseen, and invisible by these institutions. It was subsequently prompted dialogue that allowed us to explore urgent topics with artists, neighborhoods, activists, innovators, practitioners that could really relate to our community on a local, national, and international scale. Next slide. So twice a year, we gather in the spring and the fall to open our rounds to a community market. We have entertainment, vendors, family activities, and also just a time for everyone to fellowship and come together. Next slide. Project Rowhouses has always been an institution where there is a call and response to our work. Rick has, and I'm paraphrasing this conversation he had, but when he was talking about just the project and the artwork that he was doing at the time, this high school student really challenged him because he said that, okay, you're bringing up all these subjects and topics and things that are going on in our community, but we already know what's going on in our community. And how are you going to fix it? So with that prompt is really what started, well, I won't say started, but was really kind of a foundation for the work that we do at Project Rowhouses. So in direct response to what was going on in the community in 1995, Project Rowhouses found an opportunity to support young single mothers. Inspired by the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. Young Mothers Residential Program, also known as YMRP, provided a safe social space to connect with young mothers between the ages of 18 and 36. And they were working on their how to succeed, how to better sustain themselves and their families. And also, PRH provided them with the cultural richness that really could allow them to holistically look at themselves as, a person living and practicing self-worth, self-confidence, nurturing themselves as mother. And since the founding of the program, over 80 families have participated, and some of these mothers have gone on to receive doctoral degrees and law degrees. Next slide. So for the neighborhood, after the first cohort of YMRP mothers, and it was a 2-year commitment. They would have subsidized housing as well as all of these enrichments that would help them, again, become better people and better mothers. And after the program ended, a lot of them noticed that they couldn't actually stay in the community. And in an effort to create affordable housing, in 1997, Project Rowhouses partnered with Rice Building Workshop, and it's a program for architecture students at Rice. The project grew into a series of several collaborations across the PRH community, and they explored row houses in this model, and that's when the CDC was formed. And this is affordable housing for residents in the 77004 neighborhood. And it was said that John Biggers even said about the changes as he was seeing them in 1997. And I quote, "I see them as I walk the third ward of Houston, the rhythm of their shadow, the square of their porch, 3 or 4 over, like the beat of a visual gospel. The architecture of these houses has proven to be both poetic and functional." Next slide. The historic El Dorado Ballroom. Many of you have heard the term nowadays, creative placemaking. And what we don't really call ourselves creative placemakers. We call ourselves creative placekeepers. We try to keep the community that's already there intact. We don't have to make anything per se. Everything is already there and beautiful, and we just need to keep it. And in 1999, a man by the name of Herbert Finkelstein gifted the historic El Dorado Ballroom to PRH. The El Dorado Ballroom was constructed in 1939 and was opened and owned by entrepreneurs in Third Ward named Anna and Clarence Dupree. It was the center of Black entertainment. The first floor hosted businesses, while the second floor was the dance hall. Big names such as Count Basie, B.B. King, Jewel Brown, Ella Fitzgerald all played there. So what they would do is they would be invited to these white clubs and play, and then after hours, they would come over to the El Dorado Ballroom. But not only was it for these fancy affairs, it was also for the community. High school dances were there, family reunions, people got married there, pageants. And what you see on the left is a historic photograph of the El Dorado Ballroom in 1939. And I'm happy to say this year, in April of 2023, we were able to restore the El Dorado Ballroom back to its glory through a $10 million renovation and gift it back to the community. So community members can now have their weddings there and their family reunions. Again, creative place keeping. Next slide. And although it's not all of what Project Rowhouses does, I just wanted to give you kind of a historic overview, but then looking at Project Rowhouses this year as we embark on our 30-year anniversary. And really, what we've done throughout the years has really set us up to be the gold standard for social sculpture. We've had a chance to recenter our work. And as you see here, we talk about preservation, elevation, and celebration. We are undergoing major renovations to all of our houses. Because row houses did not have AC originally when they were built in the 1930s, they did not have AC until this year. We were actually able to put that back in and restore a lot of the floors. And then elevate. We connected with thinking about our history. This year, we took a group to Ghana to really center our work back into what all started it, or who really was one of the major influences, and that was Dr. John Biggers. Thinking about community and how we see cultural continuity between Black communities in Ghana and in the Third Ward. When we were there, we even, Third Ward has a boxing ring. We founded boxing ring. They're going through gentrification the same way we are in Third Ward. So we're trying to reinvest not only in our community, but also thinking about how we can invest globally. And then celebrating, especially our founders. This summer, we actually lost one of our founders. And we want to take this time to really celebrate the rich legacy of Project Rowhouses and the things that they've done. Next slide. So thinking about that, again, art, community, neighborhood. Many people know us, the public art program, through our rounds, but we have several opportunities for artists throughout the year. We have summer studios, and we invite local college and university students to create and exhibit work that responds and reflects community. It's a 6-week program, and now we're expanding it more to time-based and digital media artists. Next slide. Thinking about the principles of our organization, we want to create opportunities to enhance the art program, support exchange, and be a part of Houston's art ecosystem and beyond. We give artists the tools to grow into the artists they wish they could be. So we have several fellowships and residencies. We also have artist studio spaces and create site-specific public art all throughout Third Ward. Next slide. In 1995, because PRH really operates as a functional member of the community, we had a youth art program. Our founders were really looking at what was going on, and founders, artists, and some of the staff, and they saw that many youth were hanging out in the community, and they thought that they needed some sort of creative outlet. And in response to that, we started our art education program. Several years ago, it was actually discontinued because of gentrification in Third Ward. A lot of families had to move out of Northern Third Ward. But I'm happy to say this year, we have brought the program back. And it's our intent to partner with local schools and bring arts back into education. This year, we had a summer program with the youth for 2 weeks. We also took a group of high school students from Third Ward to visit Washington, D.C. Many of them, it was their first time outside of Texas and on a plane. So we want to continue to do public art, youth arts programming throughout the year, and also start our after school program also. Next slide. In 2022, we actually decided to sunset our Young Mothers Residential Program and create what we call FACE, which is the Financial, Artistic, Career, and Empowerment Department. And the decision to do that was because, again, thinking about Project Rowhouses and the call and response community that we are, we were looking at the demographic of the neighborhood and the greatest needs of the community. And we found that a large population of people that had really been ignored that needed help were young men. So we created this, and now we have pop-up grocery distributions, but we also offer all of the programs that we offered YMRP, but as well as now we've increased it to art therapy. We also have financial literacy. And then we created the BBCC, which is the building blocks for creative careers. And this is a path that artists can take, have a mentor, and through a series of several months. And at the culminating event, they actually have an art exhibition at Project Rowhouses. But through that program, it teaches them about what is the business of being an artist? How do you write an artist statement? And then also we have several other programs in which we are in the community. We have the small business incubation spaces for small businesses, because it was a challenge for people to find Black businesses or businesses in general in Northern Third Ward. And then in 2015, we started the Emancipation Economic Development Council, which really fosters young businesses in the area. Next slide. Third Ward Cultural District, officially created by the Texas Commission of the Arts in 2020, supports Third Ward residents by activating spaces of healing and creating a haven for all the artists most in need to have a safe space to create and thrive. We have over 50 cultural assets within our Third Ward Cultural District, many of them faith-based, but we also have arts organizations, businesses, schools, parks. And what you see here is a flyer from our Juneteenth kickback. That is a program that we have every year. It's hosted, we have a kickback at Project Rowhouses, and then we have a citywide initiative with several organizations in Houston, and we have a culminating event at Emancipation Park. Emancipation Park is actually our neighbor. It was built purchased in 1872 by former slaves to actually celebrate Juneteenth. And we still continue to do that today. Next slide. thinking of Project Rowhouses as the gold standard. We want to empower people to come to Project Rowhouses and actually learn about our model and take it to their neighborhoods that they're currently in. We want people to study the problems of their societies and then discover solutions. We already have some models of Project Rowhouses in Greece. There's also been something in Japan. There was something in Dallas. There are other art spaces that oftentimes talk about how they are or were inspired by Project Rowhouses, specifically the Laundromat Project in Brooklyn or Art and Practice in LA, Rebuild Foundation in Chicago. So now we want to create something that kind of takes it out of the academic space and allows people grassroots to come and study and again take this model to other parts of the city or the country. Next slide. And I think I just wanted to take a moment to talk about Floyd and his work and thinking about really creating this gold standard or thinking about what our founders were able to establish. And, through his work, he is very much, an activist in that you always see the power of women, specifically Black women, in the way that he tells stories about and represents them, specifically women in his family, but making sure that, our culture is seen in such a light, and how it thrives to get stronger. And also, like, when I think about him as an educator, many of his former students, they always are around Project Rowhouses. Floyd has a deep impact in the Houston community. And I think that it's interesting how the principles of Project Rowhouses, are infused with his teaching and how he challenges his students to identify problems in their society, research them, depict them, and find solutions and take responsibility for enacting change. And you hear this over and over. So it's, I know that he doesn't necessarily, think of himself oftentimes as a socially engaged art, but I think it's, well woven into his practice quite a bit. Next slide. So I'm really excited about some of the upcoming things going on. And like I said earlier, we took this 30-year anniversary to really look at our past and relish in the legacy that Project Rowhouses has made. And one thing, I talked about the rounds, and we had a round in the fall that kind of kicked off our 30-year anniversary, and it was the Drive-By 2 in ode to the first Drive-By. And our next round is coming up, and it's our Founders Round. This is really the first round that all of our founders have ever been represented in a row house. And I think that it's helping to shape the narrative of Project Rowhouses to really encompass all of the people that were there from the beginning, working on such an amazing project. And, it's interesting because when I talk to the founders, Floyd included, they say, Project Rowhouses, I don't think any of them ever thought that it would be here this long. It really was intended to be just a project, but I think that it speaks, or it's a testimony to the type of institution that they built, that it continues to inspire, it continues to build, and we continue to evolve. I am excited about what the next 30 years brings, but right now I'm more excited just to really take this time to celebrate the men that built such an amazing organization on Black liberation. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Danielle. We have a couple of questions that popped up in the chat. Let's start off with, do you have any recommendations on how the model for Project Rowhouses can be used for other communities around the country? Seems like such a great program that we want to try and copy and paste it to like all around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, one of the models or one thing that I think is very important, and I mentioned it earlier, is really the call and response. Oftentimes, people want to build things like Project Row Houses, but they also have ideas of what the community needs and wants. And I think sometimes people need to pause and ask the community. I think that's I think that's a good start, is asking the community what they want, as opposed to maybe thinking you already know.
Right. Can you also talk a bit about why it's important to remember when it comes to shifting the forces of like gentrification into urban renewal projects and making sure we still center like the BIPOC community?
Well, I think maybe this goes back to like the creative placekeeping that I talked about earlier. I mean, I think that we have to, when thinking about gentrification, it's really about, there's this quote from Goody Mob, and it's and they say, you come to our neighborhood, we don't ask why, right? We abide by the rules that y'all live by, and you're welcome to come to our neighborhoods, and you're welcome to stay. But if you disrespect it, that's another thing, right? So, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but I think when it's about really taking a inventory of the assets that you already have in those communities and trying to sustain those. I think that is like the biggest fight that we can really have when facing gentrification. Because what happens is, of course, things are being built, but like thinking about those little things that are being torn down, and those are what people need to focus on in order to continue to sustain the history of that community.
Great, thanks. Speaking of the word sustainability, like what are your wildest hopes and dreams for Project Row Houses? Like your big pie in the sky ideas for the future?
Okay, so I want to see Project Row Houses all over the world.
Yeah.
And see the model really play out in different ways in many countries. One of the biggest challenges, I mean, I'm thinking, of course, globally, but then one of the biggest challenges that we have in the neighborhood right now is there are so many artists that do not have affordable studio space. So I would love to see us build more studio space and have that for artists. I probably get weekly calls. And we want to make sure that we are, again, allowing these artists to be the best artists they can be. And I think that is tied to having a space to do that. So, I mean, maybe some big facility that fits the architectural vernacular of Project Row Houses that really that we can really provide that for artists. And what else? I mean, there's so many things. I'd love to see, the Institute when it does take off, because I know it will, but people all over the world coming to study Project Row Houses.
Great. That all sounds great. Anyways, thank you, Danielle, for that fascinating presentation on the history of Project Row Houses and about the intersection of art and social justice work in Houston. Floyd Newsum, Evolution of Sight, will be on display at the Madison Museum of Contemporary Art through October 8th, 2023. Admission to the museum is always free. Presenting sponsorship for Floyd Newsum, Evolution of Sight has been provided by Jan and Bill Diatley. Major sponsorship has been provided by Darcy Kind and Mark Vitale. Additional support has been provided by Frank Beer Distributors and New Glarus Brewing Company. Generous support for exhibition programming has been provided by the Wisconsin Arts Board with funds from the state of Wisconsin and the National Endowment for the Arts. And in addition to thanking the sponsors who helped bring this exhibition to the museum, MMoCA also acknowledges the Ho-Chunk people on whose ancestral land Madison was built, along with 11 other First Nations of Wisconsin. To learn more about other upcoming talks and presentations at MMoCA, you can visit our website at mmOCA.org or by following us on social media at MMoCA Madison. Thank you.
Thank you.